It is not even February yet, but already best ball season is grinding into focus. Underdog have launched their pre-draft best ball contest, and there's lots of money to be won. These contests are particularly unique because they have the rookies without their landing spot. Myself and Tyler, we've jumped in a bunch of slow drafts, and we're going to talk through our thought process on how we want to look at each of these drafts as they're developing. We're going to talk about which players we'd rank higher, because we're not just talking about quick on the clock decisions now. We can really dig into what we liked from last year and what we didn't like. Tyler, this is the little board, $3 entry. We've got already nearly 10,000 entries in 24 hours since it launched yesterday. You've been in a few of these. What's your kind of general feel for the opening rounds?
It's that the guys that people just saw recently really do well are going to continue to rock it up. The recency bias is still very real. It's still very alive in these drafts. The guys that aren't looking very good, dropping like flies. That's not the only thing dropping. Dalton Kincaid. And then guys, and I think you're going to see guys that folks forgot were injured or when they got injured. And those ADPs are going to fluctuate as people are reminded of contracts, reminded on outs, and reminded on injury timelines. And until those little morsels of details are, in the zeitgeist or on people's minds, it's going to be kind of a little bit of a free for all. But yeah, the exciting rookies are getting skyrocketed up boards. The veterans that smashed are in everybody's mind. So it's a lot of let me draft the guys that smashed last year, and then you're seeing some of like the Ben Johnson hype or the Liam Cohen hype kind of bolstering a few other ADPs as well. Definitely some oddball ADPs. I had sticker shock coming in for a few of these guys.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that makes this contest so much fun. If you are able to play on Underdog and haven't done so already, use the code Sanctuary when you join to get up to $1,000 of bonus cash. You can see from the round advancement from the little board, 3 of 12 go through in the first round. That's 25% of the people in that opening draft. Then 1 of 10, 1 of 10, and a 471 seat final. This is definitely not the worst contest. Like, there's a lot of friendly stuff going on here, and up to 100 grand up top. So let's get into it and start talking about the first rounds on our first slow that we're on the clock on. Ja'Marr Chase goes 101. Do you feel like Ja'Marr Chase is the unquestioned 101 in these drafts, or are people still going back and forth between him and Saquon Barkley at this point?
It's definitely Saquon and Ja'Marr Chase. Saquon Barkley opened up with a 2.5 ADP, and it's already slowly inching its way to 2.1. And I would not be shocked at all by the time that this draft closes for Saquon and Chase to basically both be ADP 1.5. I think part of Ja'Marr Chase is, he had a bunch of big games that smashed. That was awesome. But I think a lot of people are saying, hey, if T. Higgins leaves, when T. Higgins leaves, he's the only guy there. And that doesn't always work out, but that's right now what's bolstering. Is like, hey, he was one of the only wide receivers to really smash last year. He's been in the top 6 regularly the last few years. So it seems like Underdog, by the way, guys, wide receiver heavy all the time. These slappies love their wide receivers. They're not called piss boys for nothing. But the Saquon 101 is going to be making its strong surge forward over the next few weeks as he scores touchdowns from everywhere on the field.
Yeah, and I think a big part of the argument for whether you prefer Ja'Marr Chase or Saquon Barkley is just going to be how you like to build your roster construction. If you're somebody who leans into hero RB, then Saquon Barkley was an absolute legend as a hero RB this year, so I can understand that. If you like us and tend to lean a little wide receiver heavy, then it'll be a very easy click for Ja'Marr Chase, and a lot of this will be determined by who settles around the round 2-3 turn. Because if you're looking at 2 running backs or a good pool of running backs there, then you can talk yourself out of choosing Saquon Barkley this early. We are on the clock though, and do you want to go Saquon Barkley or Bijan Robinson? For me, I'm kind of fine taking Saquon Barkley. Had a major fade in him last year, didn't work out. Was much higher on Bijan, but I do feel like Saquon, even going into next year, is a good value here.
I agree. Like he smashed. He was awesome, and we saw plenty of games where there was more on the table. There were plenty of times he got stopped at the 1 or 2 yard line, and Hurts got those touchdowns. And on a season where that happens a little less frequently, he scores a few extra touchdowns. And with how good the Eagles are, how good this team is, all the big pieces are extended multiple years in the future. The O-line can get stronger somehow with more pieces added to it. And the wide receivers and the passing game a little up and down. So there's still a lot of meat left on the bone for Saquon to just kind of repeat last year in a different fluctuating way week to week. And then there's also meat on the bone to go full CMC and lap the field full season if somehow Hurts doesn't get all those short yards touchdowns. So the guy that faded him and watched once again as he and Hurts both scored multiple touchdowns, and Saquon didn't have to play the whole game. Yeah, he's a strong pick, and it's hard to go away, even with the second and third round on these early ADPs being pretty strong in running back. I think enough wide receivers are cheap enough where you can get a construction with a first round running back once again. I like Bijan a lot, but I do have some questions about what the Michael Penix full season offense is going to look like. I think leaning into Bijan late made sense for a rookie quarterback coming in. Are they going to do that next year going along to give him the full workload, or will they try to make sure he stays healthy? And they had some. This is the same coaching staff that weirdly kind of gave Algier work to buoy Bijan over the course of the Kirk Cousins season, and so you have questions and concerns about what the full workload is going to be, even as good as he was.
Yeah, and part of my argument last year in terms of fading Saquon Barkley, which obviously was wrong, but was that I thought Kenneth Gainwell could have more of an impact in his rookie season, and it just I thought that Will Shipley would have more of an impact in his rookie season, and that Kenneth Gainwell would be involved more, and it just didn't pan out that way. Or even when they were involved, or even when Jalen Hurts wasn't throwing to running backs or getting cheek sneaked into the goal line, it just didn't matter for Saquon Barkley. So I'm happy to roll the dice. I doubt I'd be heavily exposed much above 10%, but if I can end up somewhere between 6 to 10% on Barkley, I'll be fine with that this year.
Yeah, I think one lesson I learn every year is that a first round fade is more risky than it is rewarding, simply because, especially drafting this early on, this is still a contest that pays out in week 17 of the 2025 season. So there's a lot to go on. And so in these early drafts, I think there's a big edge to saying, who are the teams that are going to be good to great, and drafting as many players as you can on those, because this is 20 rounds, and that's going to help you, deal with the chaos of a full season when you're putting less variance of potentially crappy teams or players that have a thin margin to hit as being really good, or you hope they're really good, you hope your team's not too bad, etc. You want to avoid landmine situations as much as possible, and Saquon might be the best player plus situation combined going into next year.
Yeah, let's move on to our next draft. We'll take Saquon there and jump into the next one. So this one, we're picking up a 106. Before us, you can see it's Ja'Marr Chase, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Justin Jefferson, Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, CeeDee Lamb, all there. I kind of go back and forth on Puka Nacua and Nico Collins. It feels like there's going to be another offseason of uncertainty around the Rams QB situation. We know last year they were a little bit in and out on Matthew Stafford. But Puka Nacua, do you view him as QB proof?
He's just so good. He and Nico are both so good, but I have a hard time believing that if Stafford's not there, McVay's not going to have an answer. Guys like Carr, guys like Kirk Cousins, they're out there. Guys like Darnold. I think if McVay's not going to retire, which it seems like he is dedicated to making this team work, if Stafford's gone, they're going to do something. This is not a team that sits on its hands and waits for things to happen. They've handled things really well, both in the draft and free agency. Is he QB proof? For the most part, players are gonna we've seen Cooper Rush and CeeDee Lamb be fine, and we've seen McVay make it work. Unless it's truly atrocious, I don't have too many concerns. I don't want to overreact too much when it's a player that good, because it's not like Houston doesn't have a lot of question marks.
Yeah, so I guess it comes down to who do you feel better about here, Puka or Nico? I just slightly lean to Puka.
I agree. He's been so fantastic, and there's a chance that we do this all over again, where we say the offense is going to have so many people leave and yada yada, and then, they had really bad injury luck this year, and we're still really strong. What happens if the O-line's healthier and the QB doesn't go anywhere, and Cooper Kupp leaves because he looks like he might be on the outs?
Yep, absolutely. Let's move on to the next one, see what we've got on the next draft. So this one, we're picking up the 104, Saquon Barkley, Ja'Marr Chase, Justin Jefferson. Now, Can you make an argument to be taking Puka ahead of Bijan, or would you rather just go Bijan or even Jameer Gibbs here?
I mean, to me, this feels like a tier. The underdog slappy
Yeah.
in me says wide receiver. He's so good. He's so awesome. But we just outlined there are some question marks. McVay wants to be more versatile in their offense. There's question marks about Stafford and Cooper Kupp in the offense. Bijan's very talented. Gibbs is very talented. Monty's back, but Monty's getting up there in age, knee injury. He'll be fully healed by it. We know what Jameer Gibbs' floor is very safe. His ceiling is massive. So it really just comes down to like over a full season and then in the playoff seasons, who do you want on your team? Who do you feel the best about? Um, it really is just different flavors, right? I like all these guys. I think Bijan has a better bet of seeing a higher workload all season. My one thing with Gibbs is that Ben Johnson's gone. We don't know what the replacement situation is going to look like. So I'm going to be a little bit hesitant on all the Lions pieces I've been really high on the last couple seasons, simply because we don't know what the drop off is going to be in pacing and efficiency. We've seen Goff struggle when, new systems or without an elite play caller. He's been really good, but you have questions about it. And Gibbs splitting the workload in a non-Ben Johnson offense could be pretty bad for his full season outlook, unless he gets all of the volume. He's just very good. So it's these, and I guess in that respect, I do think Bijan maybe is in a slight tier of his own in that respect this far out in the draft cycle.
Yeah, when I put out my predictions for top 36 in ADP a few weeks ago on the channel, which you can go and check out, I had Bijan as my RB2 then. I know some people are kind of pushing Jameer Gibbs up, but I'm with you. Like, obviously, Michael Penix swayed things a bit, but from week 9 onwards, Bijan was the RB2 with 21 PPR points per game, ranked 4th in rushing yards per game, second most rushing touchdowns, led the league in success rate on man and gap scheme success rate runs. Like, I just think there's plenty to like about him, so I'm definitely good with Bijan Robinson here. Moving on to the next one, we're on at the 105, and you can see Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Jameer Gibbs. So a running back heavy start. Puka Nacua or Justin Jefferson here. Like, I personally lean slightly at Justin Jefferson, but I do understand that some people are going to be worried about the quarterback situation in Minnesota.
I mean, yeah, it's a similar question and concern. I think it's likelier that Stafford's back, being the quarterback of the Rams, than it is that Darnold is back for the Vikings. And then that leads you to go, well, what's the answer? Is the answer Dimes at Daniel Jones as the bridge to JJ McCarthy coming off of the knee injuries? Or is it, Nick Mullins? I think if it was Nick Mullins, they wouldn't have gone for Darnold last time around. So now the question is, who are the Vikings going to bring in to be the bridge to the still rookie in the NFL? And then, between those two, what do you feel more comfortable with? I do agree that the Minnesota offensive, Kevin O'Connell offense is fantastic, and you want pieces of that offense. But we did just see that Hawkinson and Addison were enough to take away from him full season. But in this best ball environment, you want just big hot stretches. You want big ceilings. Justin Jefferson and Puka Nacua have both of those things, and now you're just saying, season long and weekend ceiling, you're splitting hairs because they have different flavors of the same type of question marks. But yeah, it's gonna be hard to make a case against Justin Jefferson or Puka Nacua. And I mean, their ADPs reflect that. They're basically going right next to each other, flip flopping each other. I don't mind in this. I plan on maxing a lot of these pre-draft contests, so I'm gonna just try to have equal amounts of the first round picks. So if you have a strong link for Jefferson, I don't mind that.
Well, where I break the ties to Justin Jefferson is I just think he's a better touchdown scorer. Like, Puka Nacua scored 3 this year. Obviously, he missed a few games, but last year in his breakout season, as a rookie, admittedly, he only scored 6 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson this year was hitting career lows in like receptions per game, yards per game, like his lowest since his rookie year. But he made up for it by hitting in the red zone consistently. So that's just where I give him the edge. But I know touchdowns aren't the stickiest thing, so it's just a slight edge that would just push me towards him by 1 or 2 spots.
Sure, and this is the fantastic part about slow drafts, because you can sit here and argue for a long time, and I will not be surprised if Puka ends up booming in a big way for the touchdown department if they move on from Cooper Kupp, and if they want to be more versatile.
Yeah.
That could easily mean being more creative in the passing game in the red zone and it not just being handed to Kyron and Prey. And Higbee is not guaranteed to be back with this offense given his
Yeah.
age and his contract situation. So this could end up being just a Puka go Burr because he's the engine of the offense with other guys stepping up. But, I like Justin Jefferson. I'm never going to feel bad about clicking his name.
Okay, so this one, 104, and we are on the clocks. Before us, Jamar Chase, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson. Just an auto smash on Saquon Barkley.
I'm going to take the value if you're going to give me the guy that finished RB1 at 4. I'm not going to be mad about it.
Every time. Let's do it. And on this next one, Bijan Robinson goes at the 102 behind Jamar Chase, Saquon Barkley at the 103, Justin Jefferson. This one feels like Puka Nacua to me, but can you make an argument to get Jahmyr Gibbs up there? I know we talked earlier about how much you feel a little hesitant on the Lions. Where's the Jahmyr Gibbs line for you? Is it before or after Puka?
I think it's after Puka. I have a strong sense that Gibbs is going to slightly fall down as projections come out, as sharp rankings come out, and as folks get a little bit hesitant on Ben Johnson's not there anymore. I expect that to move a little bit. And if it doesn't, then fine. I can always make up ground by taking him elsewhere. But right now, I just think it's a better price and a better bet for the ascendant Puka Nacua, who in his points per game and full games played over the Jahmyr Gibbs question marks of Monty, Ben Johnson, and just the Lions in this new era in general.
Yeah, when I put out my top 36 early rankings, I had Jahmyr Gibbs closer to the back end of the first half of the first round, and then obviously he went nuclear, and I think that there's a little bit of recency bias just pushing him up a little, so I'm with you on that one. Right, let's get on to one more before we get out of here. Okay, so this one, we're at the 109, starting with Jamar Chase, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, and then CeeDee Lamb. So in terms of the queue of players who's left for us at this point, Devin Achane, who obviously had really impressive splits with Tua, but the Miami offense, I don't know, man, definitely top of the fraud watch at the minute. Brian Thomas, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CMC, and Malik Neighbors. Honestly, I'm a bit shocked that Christian McCaffrey is going this high. I thought he'd be mid-second at the most. I'm very happy with that trio of wide receivers that you've got there. Which one of those stands out the most to you?
The underlying metrics of Malik Neighbors scream absolute alpha, target share, all that good stuff. But we've learned that a bad offense is not good for fantasy for high prices. Malik Neighbors, the 2-3 turn, you are more than willing and more than happy to accept the risk of that at the price. At these prices, I want elite pieces with elite seasons and elite weeks in their back pockets. I think Amon-Ra's price is more than justifiable because any questions I have about the Lions, I don't have the question of, is this still a playoff team? This is still a playoff team with Dan Campbell. This is still Jared Goff's favorite target. And I'm going to more than willing make the case that without Ben Johnson, Jared Goff just locks onto his favorite target and feeds him and hopes for the best versus, being able to spread it out to guys like JMO and Gibbs in the passing game. So with that said, I'm more than happy to take Amon-Ra, who was closer to the 5, 6, 7 range this last year and who smashed absolutely with red zone touchdowns. I love Amon-Ra. I love Brian Thomas. I love Malik Neighbors. I think I'm going to be against consensus and having Malik Neighbors probably be a slight tier below Brian Thomas and Amon-Ra, slightly because Brian Thomas was fantastic, is fantastic, and just got an upgrade in he's not going to have Mac Jones throwing to him constantly, only having to rely on Yak. Trevor Lawrence will be back, will be healthy, and he's getting Liam Cohen, who just, took over the Bucs offense and somehow improved it from where Dave Canales left off. So I like the odds. The price, it's not fun, but it's hard not to love a guy who can win deep, win on Yak. I mean, he's like what Amon-Ra and Deebo Samuel had a power baby. It's hard not to love what that looks like as the Mike Evans of this offense, but young. And then with Amon-Ra, just like it's still the Lions, it's still Jared Goff, it's still Dan Campbell. I'm happy. I mean, this is basically where Amon-Ra was 2 seasons ago, and he was more than worth that price.
Yeah, I mean, Amon-Ra, another player who kind of like Justin Jefferson, saw a volume decrease, the ball was spread around a little bit, but then had a career high 13 touchdowns in the regular season. So I feel like his role is safe enough and his ceiling week to week is high enough that I'm completely good with taking Amon-Ra there. So those are our first few slow drafts. How we're going to try and approach round one. We are going to keep coming back to these drafts over the next couple of weeks, talking through as we feel out these early draft boards and telling you where we rank players, where we feel better about the draft and how we want to construct early drafts in the 2025 season. If you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tell us which players you'd be taking higher than we did. We'll be back very soon with more of these slow draft picks.